Hello again, everyone. Today I'm going to be doing a fountain pen favorites video. So again, these are my recent fountain pen favorites. They seem to change quite often, but I wanted to profile some pens that I've been really liking lately. And 8 seems to be the magic number because that seems to be the number of pens I've been showing in the favorites videos. So maybe we'll just make that a thing and make this my 8 favorite fountain pens of the moment. Yeah, I was trying to think of what exactly to call it. And you'll see that some of these pens are a little bit frankenpenny. They're franken pens, basically. So I've been doing a lot of nib swapping, and I've been getting a little bit more daring with the nib swapping. So you'll see some of that reflected here. I have a sheet of Tomoe River paper here to go ahead and do a writing sample for each of these pens. The inks I wouldn't necessarily all call favorites, but they all work really well with these particular combinations. So I'll talk about those as we go on. So let's go ahead and get going. I will push these off to the side for the time being, and I am going to zoom in so that you can see the writing sample. So the first one I'm going to start out with is this. This is my Parker 51, my new Parker 51, the new revised version of Parker 51. I wasn't entirely sold on it when I first was writing with it, and I had some issues with there being a really small sweet spot. I will put the video down below where I initially talked about this pen. I have since changed my opinion of this pen. I used a different ink, and that made all of the difference. And sometimes that does make all the difference. I'm learning that more and more. So this is a much wetter ink that I put in here this time, which you'll see what it is. And I no longer have the sweet spot issue. And this gold nib that I have on mine is really, really nice. This is the plum color. And I go back and forth between posting this one and not posting it. I'm gonna not post it today for the purposes of this video, but you can do either. It's a little bit back heavy with the cap posted. All right, so this is the Parker. Oops, I hadn't written with it in a little while, so I don't want that to reflect badly on it. Parker 51. I'm going to put new with a medium gold nib. And then this ink is Diamine. Writer's Blood, which I really do love in a lot of different pens. It's very, very wet. But as you can see, if you watch the other video and then watch this one, you'll see that I'm not really having the extreme sweet spot issue. You're still getting lighter lines on either side, but it is nowhere near as problematic. And I'm able to not have to adjust my grip when I'm writing, and it writes quite well. So, and it's so smooth and lovely with that nib. Like I said, the starting off here, I hadn't written with it in, a few days. And so this ink does have a little bit of sheen to it. And inks with sheen do tend to get a little gunky when they haven't been written with, like immediately. So that is what was going on there. So, but this is really a lovely pen. And this is, like I said, it's the plum color with the gold nib. And I haven't tried the new version of Parker 51 without the gold nib, but I don't think I need to because this is really nice on its own. Okay, so that's number one. These are in no particular order, however. And then this is a Platinum 3776, and I haven't shown these too much on the channel. I was kind of going back to basics with this one. This one is well, not in this color, and this is actually a nib swap situation. So this is in here is a medium nib, as you'll see, but I originally had the medium nib in a black body, and I swapped it out into this red body because I really love this color pen, and it really kind of made it seem like a new pen, and like I really wanted to write with it more. And at some future point, I'll show you what happened to my excess nib that used to be in here, but it's really, really pretty. It writes beautifully. I think I mentioned that this was the first gold nib that I ever purchased, was this medium nib in this 3776, and it continues to be a winner. So this is, I'm going to put this off to the side here. So this is the Platinum 3776, and you can see the difference between this medium nib and this medium nib is quite stark. This is a gold, a 14K medium nib. And a lot of people talk about these platinums having pencil-like feedback. I think that's probably true. It's not as buttery smooth as the Parker is, but I still find it very smooth and lovely to write with. It has a little bit of spring. And I really love this little heart-shaped breather hole on the nib. It's really a classy pen, and I especially like this particular color. So this color is called Begonia. And that's red. And this ink is another diamine, Oxblood, which is actually kind of similar to Writer's Blood, but it doesn't have the sheen that Writer's Blood does. And I will actually put this paper closer to the camera so that you can see, and move it around a little bit so you can try and see the sheen. So that's number 2 there. And then I have a couple of hand-turned acrylic pens. And I've actually been using washi tape to label some of my pens. You'll see that on some of these. I have so many pens that sometimes I forget what nibs I have on them, and I end up having to open them to find that out. And this is just a much easier way to identify. So this has a number 6 nib, and it's a broad nib. And this is actually just the broad nib that came off the shelf. This company, well, they're all very small, one-person operations, really. This is from River City Pen Company. And this color is really what made me get this particular one, and it's called Fairy Puke, which I thought was cute, but I also really, really like the glitter in here and the different color swirls. I tried to match the ink color to the little bit of green that's in the pen, but I don't know how successful that was. So this is from River City Pen Company, and this is, I believe it's the Westwood model. The Westwood usually has flat ends, but this one has curved ends, but I'm pretty sure it was still in the Westwood model listing, and it's called Fairy Puke with a broad nib. And this came on the pen, and it just was a super buttery smooth, lovely broad nib. I've really been going through kind of a broad nib phase, and it's been fun because it's really, this particular one is so smooth. It's really like, you know, butter on glass, that kind of feeling, and I really, really love that. And oh, what do you know? This is another diamine ink. It is diamine. I believe it's peppermint candy. Might just be peppermint, but I'm going to put peppermint candy here. So this should have a little sparkle in it, but I haven't really been seeing that too much. Maybe once it's dry again, you might be able to see it, but this blue comes out more, or bluish green comes out way more than the sparkle. This was part of the blue series, which was part of the Inkvent calendar. Okay, and so then I have another hand-turned acrylic pen, and this is from a different company. This is from Little Pen Designs, and this has, although it does have a similar name, it is called Fairy Dust. It's in a blue color, and it is, as you can see, it's sort of a demo pen, and I have it dropper filled. And then I have a nib that's a little bit special that I put on here. So this is a Pilot number 5 music nib. And this music nib I purchased from Pensachi on a Pilot 74, Custom 74. And it was a sale, so it was actually pretty inexpensive. And I have since reused the pen body for something else, so which I will show you at a different time. But I used the housing that Flexible Nib Factory sells to put this particular nib into a JoWo housing for this pen, because this pen takes a JoWo nib unit. And I don't know if I mentioned, but both this one and the one before it, they do not post. So they have to be written with the cap unposted. And this is Little Pen Designs. And the name of this one is Fairy Dust. And this is a beautiful music nib. It has 3 tines. Not all of them have 3 tines, but most do. Oops, there you go. Most do. I think the only one I know of that doesn't have 3 tines is the Sailor music nib, which I also really like. But it puts down a really nice broad line. And as you can see, the downstroke is really, really super fat. And then the side stroke is fairly thin. And this is supposed to be for, actually, I think it should go the other way, for drawing musical notes. That was what it was intended for, with a narrow and a broad stroke. So this ink is Sailor Ink Studio 162. And, oh, I didn't mention what this nib is. It's a Pilot number 5 music nib. And that's important because you need that Pilot number 5 to know what to get from Flexible Nib Factory. Okay. And this actually has a different color acrylic on the grip section here, which is really nice. And you saw that I was almost going to open that. Don't do that, because it is dropper filled. I used some silicone grease in order to get this to be pretty tight, watertight, and not leak. But I haven't had any issues, and the flow is really, really nice in this nib, in this iteration. I've really been enjoying writing with that. Okay, now these next two, they kind of go together, and I'll show you why. The main reason is because I swapped the nibs on these two. So this one is a Wingsung 698, and it is the Lucky model, and it came with a 14 karat gold nib from Lucky brand. Apparently Wingsung bought out that company's stock of gold nibs, and they've been putting them on their pens. So I got this one at AliExpress direct from China, and it was only I think it was around $50. So for a 14 karat gold nib and pen, excuse me, I am going to stop and take a drink of water. I have been talking a lot today for work, so my voice has been through the ringer today. So with the pen and the gold nib, I think that's a pretty good deal. I will see if I can find the link to it and put that down below. It is a demo version. They also have some solid colors. I've been really into demo pens where you can see the ink sloshing around, so that's why I got this one. It is a piston fill. When I got it, I had a little bit of an issue figuring out how to fill it, because it seemed to operate a little bit differently. And I'm not going to turn it or anything, but I'll show you. One of the things I discovered is that this has a little back section that actually comes off. So, well, it doesn't come off, it pulls out. So you pull that out, and then you can turn to put the piston down, and then to fill with ink, and then to lock it so that you actually can't turn it while it's locked, which I think is pretty clever. You just push it back on there. And the nib that I have on here now, because I put that 14 karat gold nib on this Pilot 78G, I put the nib from the 78G that I had on here, which they call a double broad, but it's more like a stub. And I was having a hard time operating it with this, and I think with the added ink flow of this big reservoir, it really works well. So this can be posted. It's a little back heavy when posted, so it's a little bit more comfortable for me unposted. And I've been kind of impressed with the build quality on this Wingsung. It seems pretty solid. So let's go ahead and do a little writing sample here. So this is the Wingsung Lucky, but it has a Pilot double broad nib, and then this ink is Ink Institute Jade Vine, which is nice because I was having a really hard time finding a good pen for that ink, and this is a perfect match. I really, really love it. And this ink nib pen combination makes for a really smooth and wet and lovely nib. It wasn't feeling as smooth, and I haven't done anything to tune it or anything. I just swapped it from one pen to the other. I just think sometimes you have to find the right combination for the things that you're wanting to use. Okay, so then this is the Pilot 78G, and this I originally purchased with the double broad nib from Peyton Street Pens, and it was really inexpensive. I would say like $20, maybe not even that much. So here is the gold nib that's on here. I think it's a fine, but I didn't see an indication there. So this is a Pilot 78G. And this gold nib is actually quite bouncy and lovely, with a Lucky 14K nib. And it's really, really lovely. You can actually get a little bit of variation out of it depending on how far you push it. You don't want to push it too far, but it is very nice and bouncy. I really like it. And then this ink is Robert Oster Sydney Darling Harbor. Okay, lovely. And then two left here. So the last two are both Franklin Kristoff pens, but I'm just going to show them to you one at a time. So it's quite interesting. The ones that I've been gravitating towards lately have the number 5 nib unit size nibs. This is a 45 large, and then this other one is a 45. So the main difference between the 45 and the 45 large is that the 45 cannot accommodate a converter, but the 45 large can. But it's the same nib size, same design. It's just a little bit longer and longer enough to hold a converter, which is nice because then you don't have to use cartridges or dropper fill like I did with the other one. I don't like to dropper fill unless I can actually see the ink inside, so I probably would not dropper fill this. And then the nib that's on here is actually quite an interesting nib. It is a Parker dual fold vintage nib, and I took this off of a vintage Parker dual fold junior, and I originally was contemplating getting that duofold junior that I took the nib off of restored, but it just seemed to be in really sad shape. So I decided to get together my vintage nib or vintage pens that had nibs on them that I might want to see if I could fit them on other pens. And this is actually the only one that I was able to find a fit for. Either I could not actually get the nib off of the pen because it was just too stuck on and I didn't want to muscle it too much. I might try to figure that out more, but either I couldn't muscle it off or the nibs didn't fit in any other nib units. So this one, this has a number 5 nib and feed or nib unit and feed. So there's a screw-in Yovo number 5 nib unit in here, and this is the feed that came with it, and this nib fits perfectly, and the flow is really nice and works really well with this pen. Oh, and this color is the Diamond Cast Blue, which is really, really pretty. It has some really nice sparkly bits in there. I love that color. And let's go ahead and do the writing sample for that one. So this is a Franklin Kristoff. Model 45 large in Diamond Cast Blue with a Parker Duofold vintage nib. Now, when I first started using this nib, I wasn't a huge fan. I thought, well, it has a little bit of pencil feedback. But the more I wrote with it, the smoother it felt. And again, maybe I just found the right ink combination too. But it also has a little bit of a stubbish quality. It's got a little bit of a bigger downstroke than it does a side stroke. And it gives a little bit of interesting flair to the writing. So I actually like that a lot. And I was super stoked that it fit in this nib unit. I've tried it out with a few different pens, but this one seems to be the best match for me, personally. All right, and here is the last one. So this, like I said, is a Franklin Kristoff 45, model 45, and this is in the Italian ice color. So it will show more blue and or lavender in bright sunlight, but because I don't have any bright sunlight here handy, this is the late afternoon, so you're probably not going to get a lot of that blue and or lavender color, but it's a really beautiful, beautiful pen, and I really like these 45s. And it is dropper filled. So this is a Franklin Kristoff model 45 in Italian ice with a broad cursive italic by Nagahara. And you can see that beautiful downstroke and big downstroke and beautiful side stroke. And this ink, I've really been trying to use my lighter inks that have not been working very well in other pens, and this is one of them. This is Sailor Ink Studio 123. So here we have 162 and here we have 123, and you can kind of see the difference between those. And this is lovely. It's a beautiful smooth nib. I love it. You can hear it a little bit against the paper, but I really like the feel of it. And there, I'll show you that beautiful cursive italic nib. You can get these nibs from Franklin Kristoff, but you have to buy them with a pen. So, and it's really not much of an upgrade. It's a $25 upgrade for the custom grind, which, if you know anything about custom grinds, if you buy them on their own, they can run, you know, $45 to $50 for that same nib. So I often will buy a custom nib to go along with my Franklin Kristoffs because there isn't much of an additional cost. All right, so I'm going to bring this up to the camera to show you those. And they're really quite eclectic as far as the line that you can get from these various pens. I obviously have some really broad ones in here, like the music nib from Pilot, and then this double broad from Pilot. I've really been liking Pilot pens quite a bit lately. I probably will do a separate video on Pilot pens just because I've really been getting into them and liking them a lot. So, oh yeah, I did say I was going to put it to the side so that you can maybe see some of that sheen on the writer's blood. There's a little bit of a greenish sheen. I don't know if you can see that. And with the candy, the peppermint candy, or peppermint, it might just be peppermint, you can see, I can see a little bit of the sparkle, but you may not be able to see that. And that's the only sparkle ink in the bunch. And I recently pre-ordered I think, is it going to be the red series this year? It might be the red series because it's in a red box for the Diamine ink vent calendar for 2021. I pre-ordered it so I could be sure to get one. I pre-ordered it from Acrylic Pens, and we'll see. We'll see. I'll definitely be showing it on the channel, but I'll be saying, you know, warning, spoiler alert for the days that I do post those. All right, well, that's all I had for you today. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. I hope to see you next time, but in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.